Neutrality, objectivity and accuracy. That's what we strive for.
In a world full of misleading information, we have to stand apart and deliver news that's precise and free of bias.
We're aiming to provide critical insight into the biggest story, not just in Hong Kong, but also the rest of the world.
And share views from key newsmakers.
ViuTV News every night on ViuTVSix.
The hottest local news, trending international stories, weekly review, topics that affect our communities, in-depth analyses and opinions. All that you need is in one place. Weekly Review. Sunday night at 9 on ViuTV6.
Hello there and good evening. I'm Patrick Fock in Hong Kong. You're watching ViuTV News. Coming up on tonight's show. Reports emerge in the US saying Donald Trump asked James Comey to end the Russian election meddling probe before firing him. New surveillance laws in China. Fears are they may be used to target dissent. And pan-Democrats call for Holden Chow impeachment over the UGL investigation committee fiasco. All right, we begin tonight with the latest White House drama. A leaked memo by fired FBI Director James Comey shows President Donald Trump asked him to end the agency's probe into suspected Russian meddling in American politics. As Eve Johnson reports, the news shocked Capitol Hill, with even Republicans demanding to get to the bottom of the scandal.
After bombshell news over the James Comey-Donald Trump memo, lawmakers are demanding to see anything else that might be out there. Representative Jason Chaffetz on Tuesday giving the FBI a May 24th deadline to turn over all records of communication between the ex-FBI chief and the commander-in-chief. Trump asked Comey to shut down an investigation into former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, saying, quote, "I hope you can let this go." That's according to a Reuters source who saw a memo Comey wrote following his meeting with Trump. And Chaffetz, as chair of the House Oversight Committee, wants to see it too, tweeting, "I need to see it sooner rather than later. I have my subpoena pen ready." Flynn stepped down in February after reports he discussed U.S. sanctions on Russia with Moscow's ambassador before Trump took office, and misled Vice President Mike Pence about the talks. The Comey memo set off alarm bells on Capitol Hill after the New York Times broke the story, raising questions about whether Trump tried to interfere with a federal investigation. The White House quickly denied the report, saying it wasn't a, quote, truthful or accurate portrayal of the conversation. Chaffetz's request is backed by Speaker of the House Paul Ryan, his spokesman saying, quote, "We need to have all the facts."
Meantime, the US says it believes it could persuade China to impose new UN sanctions on North Korea following its latest ballistic missile test. US Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, also warns that Washington would target and call out countries supporting Pyongyang.
You are either with North Korea or not. And what that means is, when we are talking about sanctions, are these countries putting these sanctions into effect? Are these countries actually following through on the sanctions that they're supposed to? We want to look at the current sanctions in place, and we want to look at strengthening the sanctions. And the United States is not past looking at third country entities who are helping North Korea and putting sanctions on them. Because if you are supporting North Korea, you're against the rest of the international community.
Well, the Chinese government has quietly released a new security draft law that will help it to better monitor foreign and domestic criminal suspects. As Samantha Vardas reports, there are concerns that the law will be used to target dissent.
China getting tougher on security threats inside and outside the country. Beijing on Tuesday releasing its first public draft of a new intelligence law, which would give authorities new powers to investigate foreign and domestic suspects. Reuters' Christian Shepherd says it will also protect the investigators.
The fear for many of the people that are often targeted by the authorities, such as rights activists or lawyers who promote human rights. They often surveilled using techniques which before were considered to be illegal or at least within a legal grey area. This now gives the authorities the ability to point to the law which says that they are allowed to set up such things as video cameras to surveil individuals they consider to be threatening.
China already has a number of security laws which were brought in 2014. What this new one adds is the legal footing for authorities to carry out surveillance, like seizing property, raiding premises and monitoring suspects they deem to be a threat, something Beijing has kept tight-lipped about.
There was no mention of this in state media, and when you search for it on the National People's Congress website, where it should have been readily available, you couldn't find it. You would need to have the link to the draft in order to access it and read the draft law. This differs from other laws which are normally publicized because they want to get as many people as possible commenting on them. It's unclear exactly why they have done this, but one possible explanation is that such issues as intelligence gathering are always very sensitive, regardless of what country you're in, but particularly in China, where you have a very large state apparatus for keeping track of individuals and organizations.
The new measures have stirred up criticism from Western governments, which warn the laws could be used to target dissent.
And to local news now, and the latest on the furor over Chief Executive CY Leung's interference with LegCo's probe into the $50 million payments UGL made to him. Pan Democrats now say DAB lawmaker Holden Chow should be impeached over the fiasco. They say he allowed the chief executive to obstruct LegCo's investigation. Legal sector lawmaker Dennis Kwok said Chow was guilty of misconduct as a legislator and had tarnished LegCo's reputation. Chow is under fire after letting CY Leung amend committee documents. The move sparked an uproar. Even DAB chair Starry Lee weighed in, calling her fellow party members' actions inappropriate.
If he receives CY's comment, he can suggest CY to contact the committee directly, or if he take that comment with himself, he have to express that to the committee member. That is the comment made by CY. But we have to understand that committee have to communicate with stakeholder well from time to time, because it is a fair procedures.
The committee will hold a meeting on Friday to discuss the matter. And away from that drama, earlier today, the chief executive met with Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif on the second day of his Hong Kong visit. Together with top officials, including Financial Secretary Paul Chan, Leung greeted Sharif at Government House this morning. He told the Pakistani Prime Minister Hong Kong wants to strengthen trade ties with his country and said the city could serve as a bridge for Pakistani businesses to enter mainland China under the Belt and Road Initiative. Sharif told the chief executive he was glad to be back in the city following his first visit 44 years ago to learn about its manufacturing industry. Now, MTR Chairman Frederick Ma says he wants to reach an agreement with the government on the operation of the high-speed rail soon. Speaking after MTR's annual general meeting, Ma said the company needs to start laying groundwork as the construction for Hong Kong Station is expected to complete by the third quarter next year. He also admitted there will be a significant cost overrun in the Sha-Tin Central Rail Link construction, but refused to give details just yet. Meantime, the chairman added the operator has already tried its best in offering discounts to passengers, saying it can't tackle livelihood issues on its own as a listed company. All right, coming up next, the latest from the world of business with Joel Larby.
Good evening. Well, another day in the red for the Hong Kong stock market, but not all bad news. Let's take a look at the charts. The Hang Seng Index finishing the day down 0.17% to 25,293. Still, shares are hovering near that 21-month high, which was hit only a few days ago. The market buffeted by a steady flow of money from mainland China, where tough new regulations are taking their toll on investors. Now, we've been bringing you these explosive reports surrounding Donald Trump's dealings with the now former FBI Director James Comey, and the allegations have certainly spooked Wall Street. US shares futures have dropped sharply, the S&P down more than 0.5%. The dollar has also weakened. This follows the extraordinary claims that President Trump asked then FBI boss Comey to end a probe into his former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Investors have been banking on Trump pushing through some tough stimulus measures, but these allegations are now raising questions about whether he could be charged with obstructing justice. Cathay shares have soared almost 5% as bosses try to explain exactly how they'll turn a profit again. Chairman John Slosser has told shareholders at the annual AGM they're making significant progress in restructuring Hong Kong's premier carrier, but he has refused to go into any real detail about that or potential job cuts, despite reports some staff could be laid off from Friday. Cathay lost 575 million Hong Kong dollars last financial year, most of that down to a bad bet on fuel prices. Governments around the world are on alert with fresh fears of more cyber attacks. Shadow Brokers, which claims to have leaked the malicious code behind the WannaCry ransomware worm, is now threatening to release even more tools for hackers. The group is promising new codes every month to anyone who is willing to pay for them. Now, Ford is reportedly eyeing off big job cuts to boost profits and stop its share price nosediving even further. As Fred Katayama reports, staff right here in Asia could soon be out of work.
A source says Ford is planning to cut about 10% of jobs in North America and Asia. Most of them will be salaried workers who will get incentives to leave. Ford will not cut its hourly staff. The reductions are part of a previously announced plan to slash costs by $3 billion as Ford adjusts to falling auto sales. Ford declined to comment. Reuters correspondent Joe White says the company is trying to raise its profitability just as Wall Street has given up on it. Its stock has been down almost 40% since Mark Fields became CEO.
Cutting overhead costs, which is what this move to cut salaried staff is all about, is probably just one of a number of moves that Ford is going to have to make as the U.S. market goes downhill. In order to try to prop up its profit margins and demonstrate that it's got room to continue to deliver a dividend.